Hi, this is the Mercedez Lucke Benedict show, and I'm so excited to have this amazing guest on. And look how cute you look. I can see you all big now. Anyway, well, Jason, I'm still getting used to like this whole, seeing thing with the show. So it's really actually neat to be able to have you here, and I can see you very well. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's so great to have you, and I've been, chatting with you on and off for a little while now, and so I'm gonna just say a couple of things to the listening audience. Tonight is just a really special night because this is the very first time that I want to try something different, and that is to, show my appreciation for our audience and for our guest. And I have an extra copy of Dark Siege, the first book that I hope you have. Yeah, I have an extra copy of that, and I want to give that book away to one of our audience members. And so what I'm doing is we're going to have Jason. So we've got Jason McLeod here. Woo! And Jason McLeod is so awesome. If you have been listening to what I've been saying on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, or not Twitter, but all the other social platforms, Instagram, you're a demonologist, you're an author. There's just so many things paranormal. You're just a paranormal mecca of amazing things. So before I just keep going on and on, I would like to introduce you the best way I can to this audience. We've got Jason McLeod here, and he's phenomenal. Jason, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic, and it's it's great to be on your show. And we were on Archbishop Enright's first podcast, which is really fantastic. He's an amazing man. I have a lot of friends who are amazing clergymen. And they're the last line of defense when it comes to demonic infestation, oppression, and possession, when people open the wrong doorway and poke their noses into things that they shouldn't be poking their noses into, and they have to clean up the mess. And a lot of them are just really sick and tired of it. So they have enough to deal with besides cleaning up people's disasters and so forth. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it was so fantastic to be on that show with you, and to share my story, but to also hear everyone else's stories. And you're right. I mean, I consider you one of the people that is like a really high up person in the real truth of what's happening. And you're not afraid to go out there and do what you need to do. You're not afraid to talk about it. You're not afraid to handle it. But you were definitely you're just a blessed person, literally, because I mean you were part of the Ed and Lorraine Warren group. I mean, I just think that is super special. So, and I know I don't want to make it all about them all the time, but I mean,
none of this would exist if it weren't for them. None of these paranormal conventions, none of these ghost shows, any of that stuff would exist in America if it weren't for Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were the pioneers of the modern paranormal investigation craze. They've got a lot of negative press lately and so forth. And I'm pleased to be able to tell my side of the story and to let everybody know what it was like to work with them, which is a blessing. I'm so grateful and so blessed to have had that opportunity, but I believe it was all meant to be, and it was divinely orchestrated. And I'm no more special than anybody else is, but I have a really special story, to convey. And it was amazing. It's like working with, the ultimate. It's like working with Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. It's amazing. The first time I stepped into their classroom, it was like I walked into the wizard's tower. I got access to this was it. And I felt so pleased, and I felt like this was just all being divinely orchestrated. We can get into that too. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't even know where to start, honestly, but I think we should kind of start at the beginning of when you were growing up. Talk about, you must have had experiences, or let's just talk about when you were growing up. What was part of your life, that brought you to now?
Well, I always felt that I was connected to God, right? And it was never any organized religion at all. My dad, he's trying to drag us to church and so forth by the ear in some cases, and I always felt that I can go sit on the top of a hill and lean against a tree and, be immersed in God's creation and connect to God, and I was always interested in spirit phenomena, for instance, but I'd never really had an experience. But I was in the libraries all the time in middle school, especially high school as a freshman, sophomore. I was just always studying. My mind was like a sponge, and I wanted to really just absorb everything that I could. And this is in the 80s, and this is the old film strip time where you have to insert the audio cassette in it and sync them so you can flip it. I mean, ancient technology, right, compared to what everybody has today. But I was always interested in spirits, and when I found what it was fascinating is I was a senior in high school, and I picked up a book at the Staples High School in Westport, Connecticut library, The Demonologist, right? And it was about this couple that actually lived in Monroe, Connecticut. And I actually lived in Monroe as a young child. We lived there for a bit. And I was absolutely terrified for the families involved that were experiencing these horrific uh, demonic attacks, infestation, oppression, where they actually go after the family members and so forth and make their presence known and try to isolate and terrorize everybody, sometimes one by one, usually the weakest link first, the weakest family member, and leaving the alpha alone completely until they go after everybody. And then possession, right? And I was like, we've heard of that. We've seen The Exorcist. So I've watched Salem's Lot, which probably was the scariest movie I've seen. Vampires are always very intriguing to me too. But all mythology has some basis in fact, right? So I read The Demonologist. I put it back on the shelf. And I swear to God, I made a crucifix out of popsicle sticks and Scotch tape. I don't tell many people that, but I thought I'd say that on your show because I was scared. I was like, "Oh my God, this stuff was horrific that took place." And I remember my cat jumped up on me on my bed, as I'm praying, and literally like freaked me out completely. But cats are very sensitive, obviously, so he knew something was going on. So anyway,
Right.
4 years later, oh no, the next year, I wanted to go to Emerson College for English creative writing in Boston, or Roger Williams in Providence, because they both had excellent writing schools. And I wanted to be a writer. I'd written stories when I was younger and so forth, and even a screenplay. Nothing to do with the paranormal, but my dad was footing the bill, and he said, you're going to a state-supported university because you're never going to make it as an author. And he was thinking wisely, because who usually does make it as an author, and did I make it? I don't know. I mean, I have a great following because of the books, and they've done really well, but I don't have a mansion or a Porsche, or a private jet, but yet, no. But if everybody buys my book, then that could be the case, and then we can all go on the yacht together. How's that sound? So I ended up going to Eastern Connecticut State University. My dad made me go there because it was a state-supported university. It was inexpensive because he was paying for it. Thankfully, I'm really appreciative of that. But the entire freshman class had to read Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody, which was he was the most famous near-death experience hypnotic regression therapist there was. And it was all about near-death experiences. And that tied right into the whole spirit phenomena, the ghost stories and so forth that I'd been really studying, and that was a massive synchronicity to have the entire freshman class have to read a book about near-death experiences at a college I didn't even want to go to, yet here it is. And then I didn't like Eastern. I didn't go back. I didn't return. But my roommate at Eastern actually had this big fascination with Washington State, right? And that was another seed that was planted, and it's relevant. And so I took a year and a half off. My mother's an antique dealer and an artist, and I was working with her, flipping antiques. And I got into my first rock band, and my dad was furious because he said he's going to turn into a hippie and not go back to college and so forth. But when there was the next summer, I was with my friend Lou in his car, and he was a former Army combat medic and a current paramedic in Norwalk, Connecticut. Huge, burly Italian dude, like really, really serious and, amazing guy. And we were sitting in his car and we were listening to the radio, and it was the 3 Men and a Baby incident where they were actually in the editing phase and they saw the spirit of the boy hanging out behind the curtain. And it turned out that they called Lorraine Warren in to discern what was going on. And she determined that this boy committed suicide with a high-powered hunting rifle on the set. Regardless of whether or not that's true, I don't know. I wasn't there, right? But I turned to Lou and I said, that'd be so cool to work with them. And he said, yeah, no kidding. The next night, he called me and said, you aren't going to believe who just called me. Who? Ed Warren. I'm like, what? And he said, Ed was having heart issues. He wanted a medic for their team. He called the chief of EMS to recommend a medic. They recommended Lou because he was a combat medic. And a lot of these cases they were investigating, the really, really serious ones, were very dangerous. And he wanted to have somebody on with the group that basically keep tabs, especially for himself, because his heart was having issues, right? And that's eventually what claimed him, unfortunately. Anyway, he said, I'm going to their Monday night class the next night at their house. And I said, you have to get me in there. It's time. It wasn't time when I pulled the book off the shelf when I was a senior in high school at Staples in Westport, but it was time now, right? And I just knew it. I said, this is all meant to be. And so he told Lorraine all about this synchronicity. Now, there's a difference between synchronicity and coincidence. Coincidence is a coincidence, but synchronicity is the universe or God or your angels or your guides or whatever, or the combination of all of them moving things into sync so that you can actually fulfill what you're here to do. And
Right.
I just knew this is what I was supposed to be doing. And so he told Lorraine about the synchronicity, and she said, okay, well, that's very, interesting. Invite Jason to come next week. And I got to go the next Monday night. And I remember I went to their house with Lou, and we went into the outbuilding there on their property, and we opened the door, and there's a man named Drew Thompson, and he's actually a good friend of mine to this day. He was one of the original Warren investigators, very, very talented psychic, amazing guy, no BS kind of guy. And I say that because he was actually one of the people that was actually approached to be on one of the original Ghost TV shows. And he said, I want nothing to do with scripted tabloid television. And that's exactly what it all is turning out to be, right? Not all of it, but most of it. And he has no interest in that. The people that worked with the Warrens were very, very, very serious, and they wanted to help people. There were no TV shows. This is 1990, right? In the summer. And I see Lorraine walking toward me, her big telltale bun, and just gliding over me. She says, hi, Jason, I'm Lorraine Warren, honey. And she's just looking at me like she's seeing right through me. How strong is your faith, honey? Right? And I said, I have immense faith. I believe that I and the Father are one. And she nodded. And she asked, why do you want to get involved in work of this nature? Right? It's always of this nature. And I explained to everybody the demonologist. It was the most terrifying group of stories that I've read. And it terrified me, especially for the children. No child should have to experience this horror in their own home. And she asked, so it's a calling then? And I said, I believe so. And that's it. She welcomed me in, and we got to sit there in the class. There were probably a good 15 people. Ed in the front with his flannel shirt, with a big screen. An old movie screen you pull down, right? No TVs. And we were discussing all the cases they were investigating, and a new one that came to their attention. And the mind-blowing thing is they sent Lou and I together alone, representing them the next night to this case. I'm like, what? Right? I was thrilled, but I mean, it was like, I haven't even learned anything yet, and but it was amazing, and that blew me away, and it scared Lou about halfway out the door completely, because we had an amazing experience there in our first case that just scared him out of his mind. Spooked him, I should say. He wasn't scared. It's very fascinating, the stuff that takes place.
Wow, I'm just shocked that you even got to be like, go in there and listen to all the cases. Just like I've watched a lot of their their things on YouTube and watched what they do. So that's amazing. And but I'm sure she could see through you and see who you were, and just knew that you two were capable of doing that, because She's amazing. You're just so lucky you got to know
And
her.
again, I'm no more special than anybody else. And I'm not, I wasn't told you have these psychic abilities and all this stuff. She said, the more you're involved in cases of this nature, though, your sensitivities will increase, right? Because you are immersed in it. It's like I guess the modern equivalent is your phone is trying to find the Bluetooth signal, right? There's frequencies and signals out there and you're trying to connect to it, right? And the
Right.
more you're involved or around it, the more your sensitivities will increase. And I wanted to be clairvoyant, like Lorraine. I wanted to be able to see a ghost. That would be the great validation, right? Instead, I would turn out to be empathic, and that's a blessing and a curse because I didn't get to see the ghost, but I got to feel the agony and the complete loneliness and sadness, overwhelming sadness, literally bawled my eyes out. In this case, in Vermont. In fact, that's what the documentary video that Devin Bellinger through Mysterious World has just worked on. We released episode 1 on
Mm.
vimeo.com /on-demand/dark siege. And it's a beautifully created documentary of just about everything I'm telling you and your audience now, but much more. And we get into the actual tape where I have the audio of this most intense moments in Vermont as we're all, around this table that's literally bouncing on all 4 legs. And this one of the investigators, Joe, is just screaming, "It's coming, it's coming." And everybody was having something completely different at that time.
Mm.
Everybody around the table was experiencing something completely different. And they were all experiencing the table moving toward them, myself included. So how can the table, when everybody's seated around it, be perceived as moving toward them, their direction, when it couldn't be? But when you understand that we're living in a multi-dimensional frequency band, right, and nothing is truly physical, everybody's having their own experience. And it was just crazy. It was mind-blowing, the stuff that took place. And that changed my life forever because I picked up the total sadness of this earthbound human spirit, this woman who had lost her life as she was being rushed to deliver her baby, being rushed
Wow.
to the midwife to have her baby delivered. And the wagon that they were in flipped, and the body of the mother and the babies were mangled. But her last conscious thought was get to the house to deliver the baby. And there she has remained. The caveat here is that it's when you leave the body, your time and space are no longer relevant the way they're relevant to us, the way we perceive our reality. To her, it just happened. It's not like she was lurking on this property for 150 years in overwhelming sadness and grief. How terrible would that be, right? But
Hmm.
to her, it just happened. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Can you imagine? I can't imagine a woman feeling that loss. You're ready to deliver this beautiful, healthy baby into the world, and all of a sudden, baby's nowhere to be found. Now I know that, of course, that the conscious awareness that was going to animate the baby's body during its lifetime experience either never came down and fused with the body or it crossed over immediately. The cool thing is everything that I experienced before that was a total synchronicity. For instance, I read Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody, of course, and then I picked up The Unquiet Dead by Dr. Edith Fiore, which is she's also a very well-known hypnotherapist, but she's discovered that the human spirit cohabitation paradigm, where actually an earthbound human spirit can cohabitate the physical body, even though it's not physical, as we know physicality to be. They can actually cohabitate you, and you can't differentiate your thoughts from theirs. And this is a human, right? Or a
Right.
consciousness that once animated a human body, but now they're free floating awareness, and they're actually interacting with you and putting ideas in your head and putting thoughts in your head and urges and so forth. Then there was a book, Life Between Life, which took people through hypnosis to the bardo. They call it the bardo, and that's the time in between incarnations and after your incarnation. So once you leave the body and your body fails, and before you actually fuse with the body of your mother. Totally cool, right? And it really helped me understand exactly what was going on with this woman, because in this one case is this mother, she was under hypnosis, and she said, and she was actually talking to the conscious awareness that was going to incarnate into the body, the baby's body, but it hadn't been delivered yet. Where are you? I'm in the air. You're in the air, right? This was stumbled on accidentally. Yes, my mother's at the well and she's pumping water out of the well and she's holding her tummy and she's feeling really, uh, she's in a lot of pain, right? And this opened the doorway to this huge field of study that help people understand what's going on when they leave their body at the death of their physical body and before they actually come and incarnate into their new life.
Right.
Really, really amazing stuff. And that helped me understand all this stuff. I tend to ramble, so just say, Jason, shut up.
Oh no, I ramble too. It's
Okay.
good. Wow, I'm just like listening. I need to look at those books too. I mean,
Yeah.
those are, yeah, and wow, what a subject. Like, um, so the baby's just waiting, but the baby, literally, the spirit of the baby was kind of whooshed back away, or back into where it's supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be
So
born,
according to
obviously.
all these studies, right, the field of awareness that will animate the body, right, the soul, the spirit, right, which is your immortal eternal self,
Right.
enters the body of the baby and fuses with it only after its first breath.
Okay.
Right? And
Right.
then, leaves when the body perishes. But so the actual consciousness can slip in and out um, continually until it's actually delivered and whacked, and it takes that breath, and then it's locked in, right? Until the body dies.
Interesting.
So wow. But I believe we all leave the body when the soul does not require rest, but the body does. So when the body is resting for 8 hours, the soul is not going to sit around and go, it's going to take off, right? And go and experience. They say the soul can leave the body as the body is sleeping for 8 hours at night and have an entire lifetime worth of experiences because there's no time or space outside of the third dimension. And that's why when you come back, you can be completely wasted. Even after you slept for 8 hours, you could be completely exhausted for no identifiable reason because you've just gone and done so many amazing things.
That's a brilliant. I mean, I've heard of that, and I actually believe that because I do believe that we have a soul. I mean, that's why I call my company my beautiful spirit, because
I like it.
she's connected to, she's like the awesome, like she's like the spirit of me, so I totally
Right.
understand. Yeah. And so, wow, this is amazing. So when did you, what was your very first book? What book did you write
So
first?
I went to college, got my bachelor's in English creative writing. I left. So let me just go quickly.
Did you go to that, finish that
I'll give you the
college?
whole history. So
Okay.
I was working with the Warrens. I went to Sacred Heart University to pull my grades up because I didn't do well at Eastern Connecticut because I
I
hated it.
was
Right?
wondering about that.
Yeah. And at the time, it was a Catholic university. It is right. And the editor of the newspaper got wind that I was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and he was like, you know, write a news. And I'm going for English creative writing, so I ended up starting a newspaper column called Hauntings for the Sacred Heart University
Okay.
Spectrum newspaper, and that's great because it chronicled the history of working with the Warrens and my first several cases. So it's evidence. You know what I mean? So I ended up writing several columns for that newspaper about our cases together and how I got involved in the whole thing. And then I got my grades up and I found Eastern Washington University. Again, the seed was planted from my roommate, right, at Eastern Connecticut. Fantastic writing program. All the professors were published authors. It was very inexpensive. My dad was thrilled that I was going back to college, and I just went out. I flew out in the middle of a blizzard. It was a trimester school, so I came out in January and flew out in the middle of a blizzard. Ended up being president of my fraternity, first chapter president of my Washington Gamma chapter of Sigma Phi Epsilon National Fraternity, and that started my whole public speaking ability and so forth. Getting up and I memorized the entire ritual and so forth, and I took it very seriously, and I got a scholarship because of my leadership ability, and my dad was thrilled about that because it helped pay for the whole thing. So I started writing a newspaper column for Eastern Washington University's Easterner newspaper. They got wind of that. The whole campus was a buzz. So we flew the Warrens out to do their lecture. And then we toured all the local haunted hotspots in Spokane and on campus. It was a dorm where a girl jumped to her death. So that was a really interesting hot spot there. Anyway, so I was out of school. I started getting, I decided, I'm going to teach a class, non-credit, on campus about everything that I've learned so far because, everybody's wants to know what's going on. So I taught a class. I had about a good 25, 30 people. And I started putting newspaper ads in. I put an ad in on campus. I started getting inundated with letters from people. I just buried my husband and we see him in the house every night. What can we do? Lorraine, let me back up. As soon as I got out there after the Warrens left in the spring, Lorraine called me to investigate a case in Rathdrum, Idaho on their behalf. And I was thrilled, right? And I was much closer geographically. So I went and took one of my friends who's a football player with me, 2 6'6" guys in a Pontiac Fiero driving out to Idaho and to investigate this case. And I ended up meeting 2 amazing psychics and a scientist, and they became 3 of my most closest friends. They're like again, synchronicity. I wouldn't have met them if I didn't get involved in this case, but one was a family friend. Anyway, I started getting inundated with letters from people and had all kinds of great experiences. And then I graduated, went back home to Connecticut. That's where my family's from. I missed everybody. And I got a frantic phone call from a woman who said that she had been trying to contact me for days. And the only reason she found me is because they found a newspaper article that I put in for an event that I was lecturing. I created a lecture called Transcendence, right? And she found that. Actually, the little girl found it. So I got involved in this case that was absolutely the most terrifying of my life. And I consulted with the Warrens about it. And they were never going to talk about it for good reason, because these spirits came back after them a second time. And that's why there's 2 different volumes. And we were never going to talk about it. And I'd never even considered writing about my cases, right? Or my history with the Warrens. But then in 2012, I got online and I had no idea. I was just helping people. And then I saw all these paranormal teams out there and all these paranormal conventions, right? And you see all these people with their black shirts, with their bulging biceps, and their hats, XYZ paranormal, And I'm like, I worked with the Warrens of all people, right? So, and then I found out that there were these paranormal groups, XYZ paranormal, using Ouija boards inside people's homes, that they were there, claiming to be there to help. And I'm like, what? And I called the woman and I told her, and she says, my God, right? If you can spare one family from the nightmare that we went through, and especially if you can spare one little child like Kelly, then just change our likenesses and, recreate this case. So I did, and I wrote it in 2.5 months. And it's called Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare.
Yeah.
And I recreated it using my bachelor's in English creative writing in a cinematic horror format, like you're reading fiction. I wrote myself in as myself, and I'm just one of the people that came to their aid. We used the bishop that we would normally use. And I did something completely different. It's completely captivating, and the first chapter just drags you right in. And the most common comments, if you check any of my comments on Amazon, the most common comments are, I could not put this book down because I just had to know what happened next. And that's what Bishop James Long said too. And he's a phenomenal guy, and I give him all the praise in the world, because I've never met a more humble, faithful member of the clergy, Bishop James Long, he was the first bishop, or the first clergy member, the first exorcist to come to the aid of the general paranormal community. Again, the last line of defense for when people slip up, right? They get involved in something that they don't know how to handle. Amazing man. He actually read my book. I met him at Mid-South Paranormal, my second convention I ever did. Handed it to him, gave him a signed copy, and he read it. He's like, well, wow, And these spirits came back after the family, a month and a half after this case was resolved. We thought it was completely resolved. And what Ed called the most devastating case of demoniacal retribution we've ever seen before, because I consulted with him, like I said, on this case. And it included incubus and succubus attacks of a sexual nature, an extreme sexual nature. I mean, this was not just, it was just unbelievable what happened to these two teenage boys who used the Ouija board. The third was spared, but two of the guys just got completely destroyed, by these spirits, demonic spirits. And I was hesitant to even release that aspect of it, but it was so very important, right? Again, demoniacal retribution. This is where they come back for payback. It's very, very rare. And incubus and succubus attacks are very, very rare. But I consulted with Bishop Long and I said, I'm really hesitant to release this because I write in such a way that you feel like you're right there experiencing everything amongst all the people, whether it's the family, the friends, the neighbors, the clergy members, and so forth. And he read it from cover to cover. He could not put it down. He said, you have to release this because people need to know how serious this is, right? And they need to seek help from clergy immediately if they experience this type of sexual attack, because this vital life force energy that they're after is so very precious, right? It's part of your soul, and they're trying to siphon that off, especially a young person. And he made both of my books required reading for his demonology class. He has an online demonology class. You can actually find a link to that if you go to my website, darksiege.com. Scroll down, you'll see a big quote from him and his photograph. And if you click that, it'll go right to his demonology class. The man is so incredibly busy doing, hospital work and hospice work and, working, doing everything that he can to help everybody. I don't know how he even does it. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't even think he even sleeps. I don't know how he can do what he can do, but he does.
He does prayer too. I've seen his prayer
Oh yeah, Bible study, prayer, always on TikTok, always on doing all these things. And that's why I brought him in for the Defeating the Demonic event, because I wanted to make sure that he's getting the notoriety that he deserves, as well as Bishop Enright, Archbishop Enright, Archbishop McLeod, Bill Bean. I've worked on a case with him up in upstate New York. Amazing man. That man is a powerhouse. They're all great, and I brought them all together for an amazing event called Defeating the Demonic back in July, and at the Heritage Hotel right here in Southbury. And the good news is that actually the plan is to take this nationwide. So I'm already working on theaters, to do it in theaters. So that's in the works too, in addition to all the different conventions that I'm doing. Anyway, I'm rambling.
No, and I that's how I actually met you, was from Bill Bean and the Defeating the Demonic. And so getting to learn about what you're doing and that you put that whole thing together. I mean, I've had Archbishop Enright on my show, and I think he's incredible. And of course, Bill Bean, he came and helped us at our house, and there was 3 exorcism that he helped us with here. So I mean, I think it's very interesting that you're very open. Well, and I like this about you because you're very open to all aspects of being able to see spirit and understand, because that's what I have that stuff. So but when I had that exorcism, when we had the exorcisms, I literally stopped doing everything for a year. I wouldn't see, I mean, I didn't want to take chances to have anything happen to my family or anybody. So, I mean, that's when I started to study under Bill, or study everything about Bill. Because that's how I normally do. I just study my mentors, and kind of like what happened with you, I guess. We get these amazing mentors, and then they take us under their wings. And then that's just became my life. I had a special life too. But so I'm really thankful for what you did with bringing in this tour of, I think it's important.
Yeah.
I really do. And especially now, and I don't want to get too much into it because, just whatever, but I know what I experienced, and I tried everything. We tried every single thing, Jason, all kinds of people, everything. And the only thing that stopped it was bringing Bill Bean in. It was completely night and day. It did take 3 times, but we had this special case we have a big property, and there were sections. It's just the way it's how it worked out. It
Yeah.
was supposed to be that way, and it was amazing. So I am told, I told you before, like, I'll totally support what you guys are doing. I've already looked for theaters here in my area. So
It's
I
great, you know.
it would be great, and I think that the one you had was quite a success.
It was, but it was a
Yeah.
hotel, you know, and it was building the foundation. I had a great live stream as well. That's how obviously lots of people saw it, and um, you know, with
Yeah.
having people there physically was fantastic, and it was packed, which was great. But you know how many? Here's something very fascinating. I reached out to over 100 churches locally in Southbury, Connecticut, all the way around 100-mile radius,
Yeah.
informing them of this amazing event. Come and learn from these incredible men, these exorcists. And the whole purpose is not to terrify people, but to show them the massive increase in these types of cases taking place and why it's happening and what to do about it, and how these men, especially, I'm not an exorcist, right? I
Right.
don't know if I'd want to be, because I'm empathic and I pick up a lot of the emotion going on, right?
Yeah.
But these men put their lives on the line, their health, their welfare, the lives and health of their loved ones. You know, um,
Mhm.
how many uh, churches out of 100 do you think responded to me?
None. Five. See,
None,
that's what I was thinking. None.
not one,
I
not
don't
one.
understand
And
that.
we heard that five local clergy men from wherever they were came in late, right? With as a group, and they all left as a group at some point. Maybe it was when Bishop Long was playing the actual voices from the actual exorcism, not the Hollywoodized version that he got from the Vatican. But Bill lays it. He says these churches have become dens of iniquity. All they care about is money. And you know, you look at Joel Osteen's Mega Million Palace, right? And his parishioners living in squalor. You know, I mean, it's completely backwards. And Bill, I can't speak highly enough of Bill Bean and being in his presence and listening to and being with him as he's praying, right, and invoking the power of God and casting out evil and things like that. It's a sight to behold, and to have all of these guys together. Like I said, we're building a foundation of an impregnable fortress of light that no darkness is going to be able to breach. Because having those four guys together, you
Yeah.
know, it's like you know, the super people, you know, the
It,
super friends,
it really is.
the
I mean,
X-Men. It's the X-Men. Yeah, we should come up with something like that. Call it the, you know, the cross is like the X, but it's this way. That
yeah.
actually is a good idea.
Yeah. I love this. I love this whole thing. And you know what? The fact is it all comes down to, eventually you're going to know. You're going to come to a place in your life, for most people, where something is just too much. And like, oh, let's go back to opening the doors of this, what you were saying about the Ouija boards. What people are doing is just opening things up, and if you don't, and then they just think it's a game. So
Well,
yeah.
go look at the Parker Brothers game company logo
I
on the
think
boxes.
Bill's mentioned this. I
I
think
talked
there's
about
so.
that. It's a
Yeah.
spiraling vortex, right?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. So here's the thing. People say, "Oh, it's just a game. Nothing happened." Right? I used it. Nothing happened. It's just a game. Right? Here's the problem with that rationale is that the human faculties can only see visible light, which is 1%, less than 1% of the matter, space, and energy around us. We're 99% oblivious to everything around us because we can only perceive a tiny frequency band
Yeah.
called visible light. If you can say, well, nothing happened within the band of frequencies that you can perceive, which is minuscule. Cats and dogs can see more than we can. And when a cat's freaking
Yeah.
out or the dog's barking in the corner or whimpering and goes and hides under the bed, you better be alarmed because they're sensing something that you can't perceive, but they can. We say, oh, you stupid dog, right? Well, they're your line of defense, right? In that regard. So, and these beings don't play fair. These beings operate outside of time and space. They can come whenever they feel like it because you've been foolish enough to open the doorway. Ed Warren, my mentor, who I love and respect, and he said, I'll quote him, and he said, "The Ouija board is the most dangerous piece of negative occult paraphernalia in existence, and it's responsible for 95% of every case of demonic infestation, oppression, and possession that I've experienced, that I've investigated." This is a quote from Ed, right? And they're sold all over the place. People are making handmade Ouija boards, and I've gotten into arguments at these conventions when I see some of these vendors selling Ouija boards. I said, do you accept the full liability for any damage that may come about from some idiot using this board in their house? Well, what do you mean? It's like, you're providing. Now, of course, it's their own free will that's being utilized, right? And they're the ones that are responsible. But it's like, I guess it's the argument of saying, well, it's not the gun manufacturer that ended up killing the people in school, right? It's the maniac that used it and all the drugs he was on and all that other stuff. But it's still the tool. It's a tool through which you can utilize your God-given free will to initiate dialogue with forces that are unseen, right? That are listening very carefully to the conversation you're having. So Tyler and Jimmy and Kyle in Dark Seed, Connecticut Family's Nightmare, who went and bought a Ouija board at the mall to find out why in the world this earthbound human spirit of a man followed the 6-year-old sister home from Union Cemetery. Nobody believed her, right? Until they all started perceiving him inside the house. First the mother, then Tyler and his 2 friends. And then, oh my God, Kelly was telling the truth. What are we going to do? Let's go get a Ouija board. Sick, those things are stupid. They don't work. Well, what else are we going to do, right? And they actually had lots of scary experiences taking place, and they ran to the mall and bought that. So they set it up, and they're teenagers, and, they're treating it as a game, not knowing what they're doing, and then issuing all the wrong challenges, and then asking questions, and then they're getting responses. And then when it started spelling out, it's in the house because it wants Kelly. Spell their name out, Forkelly, for Kelly, And Tyler's the big brother, 16-year-old brother, saying, "What are you after my little sister for? You big, come after me, right? Show yourself." All this stuff you're not supposed to say because you're inviting them to do so, and they'll take you up on the challenge. So when you're using a Ouija board saying things like that, it's like taking a bullhorn going, "Come mess with my life." And that given today's surveillance society, actually Ed said this decades ago, before there really was a massive surveillance society, that you may be having a conversation on the internet or a text, but there are other forces and intelligence that are taking a very great interest in what you're talking about and want to get in on the action. So to close with that is you've sent out the invitation, right? The party's taking place. Come on over, right? And you can't just, it's like giving out your home address on the internet for a party you're going to have, and then deleting your screen name or signing off. You're using your God-given free will to invite these spirits into your house. And they didn't intend to summon demons into the house, of course, but that's exactly what happened. And this family was destroyed. And again, they were never going to talk about it because they came back after them a second time, a month and a half later. Horrible car accident right in front of the house. The psychic involved was actually shown what they were going to do to everybody, and she immediately called the bishop. But 2 of the boys being, just completely devastated by incubus and succubus attacks, and the neighbor's dog completely, it's unbelievable, and the poor pet, you know what I mean? But it's unbelievable. And it's, the whole purpose is here's the thing. This book isn't about me. It's about you, right? It's about the American family and the fact that how people are so oblivious to this stuff that goes around all over the place in our own neighborhoods, and how these things can gain entry into our life. And I recreated it, like I said, in a cinematic horror format that makes people absolutely scared out of their minds. But the chapter analysis section, it's in 4 sections, right? The first third is the infestation phase, part 1, infestation, including the chapters that are involved in infestation. The next phase is oppression, right? Those chapters involving all of that. And it's this family's ordeal from start to finish. And the third phase is possession. And then the chapter analysis is the final 100 pages where I explain everything I'm talking to you about now, what this family did right and wrong every step of the way, in most cases wrong because it kept getting worse. Then how to
Right.
empower yourself, how to investigate a house according to the Warren protocol that I've learned, right? So
Okay.
that's fascinating, and what it was like to work with them. But then how to pray properly, how to protect yourself properly, how to use frankincense and myrrh and do a suffumigation in your house, which is, raising the vibration of your living space. How and why crystals of certain types work, right? And what they do. Holy symbols and holy water, how that works through the studies of
Mhm.
Dr. Masaru Emoto, right? And his structured
Yes.
water experiments. Okay. Holy water
Yes.
is blessed by a priest, infused with the power of love and the power of God, is such a high vibration, right? When it's
Yeah.
cast upon a negative spirit, a demonic spirit, it's like battery acid to them,
Yeah.
right? And that's why they wail and they scream, and mentioning the name of Jesus Christ and mentioning God or summoning the archangels, or the 23rd Psalm is such an explosion of your auric field when you actually recite that psalm. These beings
Yeah.
want nothing to do with it. Oftentimes they'll attack at that point. That's called religious provocation. So you have to be very, very careful what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I can give you an example. When I was first, my very second case I went on with several of the Warren investigators and myself,
Yeah.
we were in a house, and on the landing, one of the psychics said, I think it was Drew, was saying there's a black form on the landing, and it was blacker than the deepest midnight blackness when you're psychic, and you can see it. Meaning you can see its outline in a pitch black space. That's how it's a negative blackness. And I said, all right. And I pulled out a pair of blessed rosary beads that my grandmother gave me and put them in my hand. And somebody goes, Jason, what did you do? And Donna goes, he has rosary beads. Put them away quick. Right. And then I'm like fumbling with them because they're long. Right. And I'm putting them in my hand, and I'm putting them in my pocket. So what happened was they saw this thing come right up to me. I didn't feel it, didn't sense it. I was spooked because they said, put your uh, rosary beads away, right? And as soon as I put them back in my pocket, it went right back up to the stairs. And when I asked Ed at class that the next Monday night, well, what could have happened, right? He said it was your intention to protect yourself, not to challenge it. But if you had challenged it, right, and you thought, oh, I'll see how tough you are, it could have totally attacked you. And I said, well, what could have happened? It could have burned you, could have teleported you, right? Could have scalded or scratched you, mauled you, any of those things, right? And I was like, I've always felt protected, right? And none of those awful things have ever happened, but I've never challenged anything like that on my own, right? Saying, oh, the power of Jason McLeod commands you to leave. And they'll say, I don't know who you are. And they'll attack you, right? Ed always
Right.
said, you'll never force a spirit to leave, demonic spirit out in the name of Ed Warren. That would be inviting an attack of epic proportions. You never would do that. It's always through the power of God. We have the ability and the authority to call upon God, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
pray and evoke and invoke the protection of the archangels and Jesus Christ. And those things are immensely powerful. And these forces, they flee or they lash out. In most cases, they
Mm.
flee. If they lash out, they're very powerful. But eventually, nothing can thwart the will of the Creator. God is
Mm.
the ultimate power in the universe. So all of these spirits who have rebelled, right? If that story is true, right, and we're transfigured and turned into these hideous demons and devils and things like that, if that origin is true, can ever defeat or attack or harm the creator of all that is. But they go after the creator's children, the humans. We're not the only offspring of the creator. We're divine fields of awareness that are created by the creator, sent out to go and experience and evolve and return home, right? But they'll go after human beings because they think that that's the only way that they can actually hurt God is by hurting something that God loves. But
Mm.
they'll always lose. It's a losing battle. And the thing is, like Ed said, he says the Warrens, they knew they would feel attacks come on, not physical attacks, but pressure in the head and anger and things like that, and just as negative emotions and feelings days before they're ever contacted about a serious case, because these
Mm.
spirits, these demonic spirits, know who they are, and they know that
Yeah.
they're going to get involved, and they're going to try to weaken them and make them sick or not feel well enough to go and intervene. And I can tell
Right.
you a story. We can tell you lots of stories, but we're already coming to the close already. But we can go on. Let's go for another 6 hours. You want to do that? I can do it. It's cool. I love talking about this stuff because there's so much history, you know?
Oh, I love it too. And I'm like, I was all sleepy before. Now I'm like wide
Yeah.
awake. So okay, and I do want to stop here though, because I've been trying. So if people see me looking away, I was just trying to do this. And I think a lot of people are actually messaging us, but it's on Facebook Live.
Oh,
I have it
well,
set
hello.
for I have it set for yeah, hi. I have it set for I'm looking at YouTube right now. So if anybody is on the Facebook, which there are people messaging. So Jason, we're supposed to give a question out for you to ask. And I
Mhm.
think what's going to happen, since I can't see it, that what
We'll
we'll
get
do
the
is
best answer.
yeah, who the
The
best
best, because
answer.
it's not fair if only the first person that answers the question gets it right or whatever. But
Right.
whoever gives the best answer um, to my question will get a free copy of my book, Dark Siege of Connecticut Family's Nightmare. But don't worry, because you can go and obtain your own copy at darksiege.com or on Amazon. And I really encourage people to do that because you'll understand what it's like, to experience the most horrific case of them all that, again, was never going to go to print, right?
Yeah.
Except they wanted to spare people from reliving the nightmare that they went through by understanding what to do and what not to do. So the question is, drum roll. The question is, I'm posing to you, is what causes the auric field to become porous enough to allow attacks to slip through your auric field? Now,
Da, da,
where are we
da.
going to get the answers from? Are you
Oh,
watching
look,
anybody's?
there's see. I think that's Sarah. I think that could see Sarah. So she said something. She probably knows the answer.
Okay, so
So
the correct answer is going to be the one that is the most detrimental to the auric field. So if anybody gets that right, and if multiple people get it right, they'll have to figure something out. But
well, I thought if multiple people get it right, I could put their names like in a hat and pull one out, and I could even do it on like I could do it. I can video it, and that way we have the one person. Um, and but so you're calling it auric field? Is that what you said?
yeah, your auric field. We have a field of
The aura.
the aura. We have a defense field around us. Which is our information field, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has their own. Everybody's living in their own universe, their own world, right?
Yeah.
Worlds within worlds, right? You know,
Yeah.
and that's the culmination of all of your experiences, not just in this incarnation, but multidimensionally across all space and time and dimensions for all of time, right? Everything
Yeah.
that you are is in this field, and that's why psychics can see your field and get your information. Oh, you were so and so in this lifetime. Or, oh, this is what you're going to be doing. That's how they get the answers, right? Because all the information is in this field. It also defends you and protects you. You have a mental field and a spiritual field and emotional field, right? And they're all like shields, like Star Trek, right? So there are ways to make them more powerful, but what weakens them to such an extent that they become porous or holes can appear in them, allowing evil to come through? What
Exactly.
is, yeah.
Well, from my work, it's a combination of things where, so or, when people have the cords attached to them. So, but a lot of it's emotional. Now, I mean, like if you get sad, your heart it reacts physically, past life injuries. So, I mean, there's so many, but you're
But
saying
you
there's
can't answer
one.
the questions.
I
It's
know
got to
that.
be the audience.
Are you gonna
Yeah.
tell us the answer?
Yeah. And again, it's only from my experience, but I'll tell
Okay.
you why. And it's probably something that most people haven't heard of before. So
Okay.
the answer comes directly from Lorraine Warren, but
Oh,
then the uh, bit of information that most people don't even know about. I mentioned that at Defeating the Demonic, and Bill Bean knows all about it. He and I are like two peas in a pod in many regards because we know a lot of the same stuff. So we
right.
want to do all kinds of great seminars together. But so the question is, what weakens the auric field or makes it porous enough for evil spirits to be able to penetrate it and affect you physically or emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Okay, now,
What's the number one thing?
okay, here we go. A drum roll. Dun, 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 dun. What is it?
Oh, we're not getting answers?
Oh, I can't see. I can't see
Oh,
them.
okay.
If I have a few minutes, well, we got a few more minutes. I'll try to go on and look. So you keep talking, okay?
Okay.
You tell us a little bit more about. So okay, so what I would like to know, and I'll read it in the book because I have them now. Is you know what? This is a great question. Lorraine was very much a spiritual woman that very much so, but she was also a seer and
Mhm.
intuitive. Can you explain how that combination is actually amazing for people?
She was in a little girl in school, and it was Arbor Day. I heard this story. It's what she told us. I believe to be true because I believe her. And that it was Arbor Day, and they planted a new seedling, and she was staring up, looking into the sky. And one of the nuns, the sister, asked, "What are you looking at?" She says, "The tree. It's so beautiful." Right. And she was seeing the tree as it would be full grown. Right. And that was not looked upon favorably, apparently. So she got a ruler across the knuckles or something. But they're very, very devout Catholics. And but there are a lot of things that Ed said that just simply are not true. For instance, what the Bible tells us about what happens when the body dies and our spirit moves on is simply not accurate, based upon the thousands of cases that he's investigated and all the experiences and so forth with earthbound human spirits, right? That's the earthbound human spirit. So we're fields of awareness. We are sparks in the light of the sun. I use the analogy that we're a golden spark in our core that's been cast off from the light of the brilliant, glorious, radiant sun, so that we can go off and have adventures and experiences and learn and evolve, because the soul seeks experience. We can read all we want to in a book about what it's like to be a demonologist. We can read a book about Ed and Lorraine Warren. It's not going to make us a demonologist. So Bishop James Long would say you need primary experience, right? And that's why he's such a big proponent of my books, because he says, I've had the primary experience, and I'm describing in my books, the Dark Siege series, my most terrifying, fascinating cases about exactly what these cases of demonic infestation and oppression look like, right? And possession, most horrible thing you can imagine, right? And what can be done about it, right? It's empowering at the end. It's terrifying throughout, because you realize this poor family has been thrown through the ringer, right? But
Mhm.
and the clergy came to the rescue. We used a bishop in Boston. Um, and, but it's the empowering part at the end that teaches you how to pray properly. Thank you,
Yeah.
Archangel Michael, for being here now, right? Thank you for being here now, and for drawing your sword now, and for severing any connections I have with any dark spirits, for closing any portals or doorways that I've opened unintentionally, right? Or intentionally, if I was stupid enough to do that, for keeping my family safe in all ways, always, in the name and the power and the glory of Jesus Christ, in the name of the Creator now, right? And so it is. That type
So
of
it is.
stuff. It's that fast. There's no gap between the point where you're finished your prayer and that they arrive. Right?
Mm.
It's instantaneous. There's no time or space outside the third dimension. And the same is true if you're summoning darkness into your life. They can
Mm.
come within a flash, and you'll never even know it because you can't perceive them. Nor can we perceive Archangel Michael standing next to us. Some people can. And those people are genuine psychics. They can see more of the frequency band than we can see, which is only, again, what percent? One. Less than one.
Yeah. Wow, that is amazing,
Yeah.
huh? I have the answer.
What is it?
So Sarah White says trauma or bad life circumstances? Question mark. Would that be the answer? Trauma and bad life circumstances?
That, of course, will affect your psyche. But the number one thing that causes holes to appear in your auric field is alcohol,
Oh
right?
darn yeah.
Alcool, right?
Ow.
That's what it's called in the Middle East, which means flesh-eating demon. And it's why the powers that be have brainwashed everybody to start drinking at age 21 or prior, right? Because they're making everybody vulnerable to all these forces. And oh, that can't be, but I'm telling you, it's the truth. So Bill Bean and I talked about this at the Defeating the Demonic seminar,
Yeah.
by the way. We're going to do another live stream of that, like a rebroadcast of that, because it was a 4.5 hour event that just blew people away because we're trying to get so much information out. But it's called Flesh Eating Demon. And Lorraine was always very adamant, no drugs, right? No drinking before you're allowed to go on a case with them, especially the really dangerous ones. She had, they made sure that only the people that were very serious and that were very faithful and very protected, were allowed anywhere near in these places, because they put everybody else at risk if they're anyway can be affected. So you cannot drink. You have to be of sound emotionally, sound mentally, sound spiritually, and sound physically in many of these cases, right? And so that's the number one thing, alcohol. And the reason you feel so terrible is you're intoxicated, right? You're toxifying yourself and so forth, but it also makes you vulnerable to these. So what would cause, I saw that, okay, I see Sarah White. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
So anything
They
that's
do
going
not
to
drink.
anything that's going to lower your vibration, everything is frequency and vibration, right? So if you're fearful, guilt, shame, fear, remorse, depression, anxiety, any of these things, you've got to clear that stuff out, center yourself. Here's the thing that I do, right? I tell people to do. So you visualize in your heart a golf ball size light, golden light, right? And it's a brilliant golden light. It's your connection to the creator. It's your God spark. It's who you are. We're one cell in the body of the creator. Look at it that way, right? We're one cell cast off from the creator, but that is who we are in our pure essence. So you visualize that field expanding into the size of a softball, a basketball, a medicine ball, until you completely visualize yourself being completely encapsulated in a brilliant golden field of light emanating from your core. So it's going to come front and back, out to the sides, above and below, right? You have to visualize yourself being inside this brilliant golden bubble, right? So you're the little person inside this, here's the thing, you're the little person inside this huge field of light. And visualize Christ being in there with you, visualize an archangel, Michael, being there with you, visualize a violet light coming down. Violet's a very high frequency, and it's why Catholic priests wear purple stoles for confession. It's why exorcists wear purple stoles for exorcism. Violet, the amethyst, right? The amethyst crystal, the deeper the color purple, the more powerful it is. You have to clear it and cleanse it first and so forth. But crystals are very powerful and they're used, but you've got to just shake any of the negative energies. You got to raise your vibration, go out and be in nature and ground yourself, or just appreciate God's creation and get some sunlight, right? And let that sun hit your third eye, your forehead. Know it's the light of it's the light of the creator, because the creator made it. Simple things like that. But I hope it doesn't sound hokey and so forth, because it's not, going into church and praying. Now, praying and intention are both the same thing, right? I intend, this is the Lord's house, right? Take frankincense and myrrh. In fact, I have a canister here. It's called Majesty. Majesty. Frankincense and myrrh granules. And you get charcoal discs. And this is what they use in church in Catholic ritual. It's called suffumigation. And if you're feeling down or you're feeling oppressed, right? You're feeling angry and you shouldn't be. You just feel like there's something around you. You get a little charcoal disc. You get them in rolls on Amazon. Yep. You light it underneath until it starts to sparkle. You put frankincense and myrrh crystals on top, and it'll create this wonderful smelling smoke. Now, it's high frequency smoke, and that's what we do. Suffumigation or suffumigation, which is my specialty, really, because that's what Ed really trained me to do, because that's what I did in the Dark Siege case. Is you are fumigating against negative energy. All right. It is so nauseous to these low frequency beings that they can't stand to be in its presence. And you flood your living space with it. You sweep it all over your body, under your arms, around your head, on your, put your feet over it, kneel on the floor and let the smoke come up around you. Put it in the shower, not while the water's running, and put it in like this chamber full of smoke, and you will feel really good. Another great thing to do is get sea salt and put 2 cups of sea salt into the bathtub and just soak in it and dunk your head in it and just be there, and it will slough off all this negative energy. Salt is the great leveler. I have an amazing metaphysician. She's one of my teachers. She's completely off grid and incredible woman. And she always says salt is the great leveler, right?
I love that you know that. I have told my clients for 17 years now about that when I took the salt bath and it just dunked my head under the water. It was from that moment that I was like, I couldn't even walk before I got into water because of the accident. But then when I was able to stand up, and all I did was dunk my head or my whole body in the sea salt.
Well,
So
look what they do.
Look
what they did with the baptism,
Exactly.
They
So
put you in the
thank
Dead
you.
Sea, and it was full of salt. So another thing you can add some drops of pure lavender essential oil. Lavender is what? Violet in color. It's high frequency. Hyssop,
Right.
HYSSOP, is mentioned in the Bible. It's actually more powerful than any of that stuff, even more than frankincense and myrrh. You put it on your forehead, right? Make the sign of the cross with it, right?
With a lavender oil?
No, the hyssop oil. Lavender too.
Hyssop. Okay.
I took pranic healing, right? I did Reiki. I'm a massage therapist like yourself. And I did
Oh,
pranic healing. And Master Stephen Coe, he said, when people recite the 23rd Psalm, and again, they're not, they're very much into Christ over there, this whole pranic healing group. But when you recite the 23rd Psalm, your aura just goes into this huge protective field, and they see it, right? Because these people clear and sweep and slough off all this sludge off of your auric field. So think about how good you feel when you take your car in for a car wash. I feel great. I even feel like I'm getting a car wash, right? But your car gets grimy, right? Your windshield gets grimy and bugs go on it and all kinds of slime and stuff like that. And pranic healing, PRANIC, they're sweeping or taking a squeegee to your auric field and pulling off all this gunk and cutting cords and all this other stuff, right? And it is so amazing. You feel so clear. And the cool thing is that a lot of practitioners offer free collective sessions where they actually invite the public in to experience this. So everybody is actually working on people for free and showing them how amazing you feel. And it's not anything negative, right? It is really, really, really cool. And I've experienced it myself.
You know what? All of my friends that were from the spiritualist group are going to love what you're saying here, because this is, it's just, that's what then. And I love all these people. I love all my friends from their different varieties. But you know what? We're going to have to say goodbye.
I know.
Oh, will you come back on again? I hope sometime soon you can come back.
Please check out my book, because it's all the stuff we talked about tonight, especially what I just talked about, is in this chapter analysis section. And I have beautiful books on my website. Our Journey Home, the Handbook for the Transition, which is a full color illustrated guide for everybody in hospice, their caregivers, for everybody, to help them understand what's going to happen when you vacate the physical body. Where is that available for anybody? You know what I mean? And it's all about, it's the culmination of all my research and years helping earthbound human spirits, my training with the Warrens, the near-death experience studies, spirit studies, all that stuff. And it's true. And you have to understand that there's nothing to fear letting go of this physical body. It's just a spacesuit that we're having this experience in. And we're so limited, we can only see a tiny fraction of everything around us. So
right. And thank you so much. And I love that you're sharing that whole little piece right there, because there's a whole bunch of other people I can send this to, just knowing that that's also in this book. I could really, I can really share this a little bit differently now. And so tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay. My website is darksiege.com, DARKSIEGE.com. That's my book series about my cases that I'm writing about. I know it's a scary title, but it's that's what it is. Darksiege.com. You can find the video documentary, which is amazing, Vimeo, vimeo.com/on-demand/Dark Siege. It's a full hour video available for rental and purchase, and there's all kinds of bonus materials. And I would really like to see people look at that. You can email me at McLeod Metaphysics, McLeodMetaphysics at protonmail.com or darksiege.com. That's easier to do. I don't look at that as often. My audiobook just launched today. I recorded it all in my own voice because I know how these people talked and so forth. And I'm really thrilled about that. So the Audible book is up there. I think there's a really discounted price because it was just launched. Dark Siege on Audible on Amazon. The graphic novel is in production. And all kinds of great stuff. So I really appreciate having me on, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. And I hope if any of this information could help one person, then mission success.
Well, I think Sarah won too. Sarah, you win the book.
Awesome, Sarah. Congratulations.
Yay for Sarah.
All right.
And also I need to say I do have a sponsor, which is Caveman Fabrications. So you can find some amazing artwork and sculptures and metal fabrication at the cavemanfabrications.com. All right. And thank you so much to W.E.B.B Radio Network. Thank you to Stan Fikes, our producer. And thank you to our audience. We so appreciate you. And we look forward to having you back on again, Jason. I hope in the near future.
It was great. Good night, everybody.
Good night.